Andrew, how do you say your last name?
Szalay.
Szalay.
Yeah,
I love that. That's pretty badass.
It's Hungarian.
That would be why it's badass. Okay,
And,
that makes sense.
Yeah, half Polish. But,
wow.
Yeah, so if people ask me about Hungary, and I'm like, I don't know much about it. That's a very small portion of my heritage.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Well, here we are. We are in the Habitat Restore, Lancaster and Lebanon, here in Lancaster,
That's
Pennsylvania.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just north of the city of Lancaster, right by the train station.
That's awesome.
Fruitville and Manheim Pike.
That's awesome. Well, Andrew Szalay, as I just learned how to pronounce your last name, which is so awesome. Welcome to the line. I really appreciate you stepping up to the line here and having an honest conversation with me.
Yeah, I'm really glad to get to know you and actually have a conversation.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I totally tricked him into having this conversation. We were supposed to have a business lunch today, and my assistant emailed you and was like, hey, how about a podcast?
That's right.
And I got to say, you are courageous because you were like, let's do it. And yeah.
I'm up for the adventure.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm always up for something that I may not know what's around the next corner, but
oh, well, then this podcast will be great for you.
I'm usually not too afraid of it. So let's go see what's there.
Because we literally have no idea what we're doing. So
here we go.
It's
perfect.
Perfect. So in the interest of, so here we are. This is, the Habitat Restore, where you guys are repurposing things and selling them to people.
Yep.
And it's really cool for us. Our organization, you've utilized quite a few of our teams here in the building of this store.
Right.
Our design team worked with you in designing it, and our sister company did some of the electrical construction, and our security company did some of the security, which I think is just fascinating. So that's really cool. And I got to know a lot about, as we were going through some of those processes, what Restore is doing. How about for those listening, can you tell me a little bit about what it is that you guys are doing here in the Lancaster, Lebanon area?
Sure. So starting out with this store, this is our social enterprise. Our mission is all about making homes affordable and making first-time home buyers. We're a local affiliate of a global organization. We're actually in 70 countries.
Holy
from
crap.
Africa, Asia, South America, Canada, UK. Some countries are donor countries like the United Kingdom, and we build in Eastern Europe, Africa, and those other places. Mostly it's all about housing. We do a lot of rental as well. It's not just focused on home ownership around the world, because in certain other markets, housing markets, rental is what's valued the most. So Eastern Europe, Romania.
Really?
So for instance, where you've got a lot of folks fleeing from the war between Ukraine and Russia, they have fled to Poland, they have fled to Romania, and there is a Habitat for Humanity national organization present. They already had a lot of the housing infrastructure in place, or at least the services to be able to help out. But they're traditionally rental. They're not doing as much home ownership as we do in the States. In America, we're very much focused on making the first-time home buyers, making home affordable through repairs and so forth for the owner occupants. And this social enterprise in the United States is one of the engines we have to help with cash flow.
Yeah.
Also help build we call it a net because we're not for profit. It's basically the profit of the store after all expenses. We get our net, and we're able to help cover our administrative costs, so that in large part, every one of the donations that come into our program, all that grant money is able to go directly into making the first-time home buyers in our program.
Wow.
So it's a lot of unrestricted cash that's able to help out carry that. And we actually, it's the equivalent of at least a house or more a year. So
Okay.
I'm really looking forward to having, publicizing later on a house that Restore built.
Wow. Well, I did see you guys are currently working on one. Is it in Colombia?
So we have several projects underway. We're finishing up, and the owner occupants are moved in. We're just working on settlement right now with the municipality, county government. We got 4 new build townhomes, all built out, did the full foundation, and they're 3 and 4 bedroom homes. So our volunteers, they've helped to build it. We've also used a lot of subcontractors on there as well.
Yeah.
So
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I was telling you before we got started, we have some clients that are from the Atlanta, Georgia area, which you guys have some connection to.
Indeed.
And they just were investing and sending their people out to do what you're talking about, where they're building and helping with habitat in the community. And I think that is so essential when we do that stuff.
One of the core things of Habitat for Humanity is just like in our mission statement, it's seeking to bring God's love into action. Habitat for Humanity brings people together to build homes, community, and hope. And one of those vehicles is because very traditionally, when we started in 1976, it was bring the volunteers out to build the homes.
Yeah.
And ground up, usually new. These days we do a lot of rehab too, but bringing people into neighborhoods they may not have already would normally go into to see the humanity and work shoulder to shoulder to help improve somebody's life.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a dual ministry at the same time, where we're not just helping the first-time home buyer, we're also helping our colleagues, our friends, the people are coming out to volunteer from our churches and our businesses and throughout the community to help us out. And then I think that doing good work is actually more than therapeutic. And it gives us that connectivity.
100% agree. I 100% agree. When you serve others, it does something inside you.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that we don't understand and we don't realize. It's one of the reasons that the first company I ever started had services in the name, because we believed in a legacy of service. And, that's the cool thing about the trades too. As tradespeople, tradesmen feel the most fulfilled, a tradesman or a tradeswoman, when they are serving someone in what they're doing. Like even in this building here, I know that some of the guys that did the work here, whether they were carpenters, whether they were electricians, whether they were plumbers, and they've heard statements from people like you and your team about how much you enjoy the building, how much you enjoy. And it's amazing to me, and it shouldn't be because I've seen it all my life, what happens on their face when they hear that. And what I know, even for myself, how fulfilled you feel inside when you realize that you've served someone else, which is what's so great about what you guys are doing, because I think that is super important, especially that what your core value is and your mission as an organization. So
there's pride in work product of whatever you're putting together.
Yeah.
And some people build teams. I spent 15 years doing policy analysis, and I took pride in a certain amount of knowledge and informing others. But I've actually been really enjoying being here in central Pennsylvania, seeing the tangible work that people do as well.
Yeah.
And I'm the son of a master electrician, and I've helped,
No way.
put in whole services in, and found ways to, get through the drywall and through the upper floors and so forth, and from the attic to feed the lines. But there is a satisfaction with seeing the work completed.
Yes.
And I think that too often, maybe it's digital age, maybe it's aging out, maybe it's just not the same education, maybe the expectations are too high and a little intimidating for some folks right now. But there's a great deal of satisfaction, and I love seeing the work product that comes out and the things we're able to produce. But it's because we've been able to bring together these amazing volunteers, the staff, and then with this building, this headquarters for us, because it's more than just a restore, it's our headquarters now. Pulling it all together, it's been very impressive to me from somebody that's been looking at a lot of the policy side and market side of housing and building.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's talk about that a little bit, Andrew, in the sense of, so I did a little bit of digging on you. And so you actually come from, your old stomping grounds was Washington, D.C. And as LinkedIn is a great tool because we get to see someone's history.
Yes.
Which I think is important.
It is.
And
I completely agree with that. I found out a little bit about you in the process. So.
Yeah.
Not enough. I had to talk to you, which is how we're here. But
and I mean, I think that's what it is. I've enjoyed my conversations with you as well, where we get to learn more, but it helps you get a feel for who someone is. So tell us a little bit about how you go from being in D.C., working, I believe it was the House of Representatives.
Yes.
And working with the House of Representatives and getting into now, you've been the CEO here for over 7 years.
Actually 6 years.
Okay.
I've been here with the affiliate. I came up
Okay.
to work for the affiliate. My predecessor, Stacy Ridenby, who's at 10,000 Friends here in Pennsylvania now. And I thought I was going to work for her for 10 years before finding another opportunity to take care of myself, my family, and do good work. But actually, I'm originally from Buffalo, New York. And
Okay.
I got a political science degree. I wanted to go into journalism, and I
That makes
was
sense.
trying to figure out what the path was. And I realized if I was going to go into grad school or go into something else, the gateway would have to be something. You got to get some kind of experience. So the political experience was it. I had no idea I was going to end up working for my local congressman. I moved down to D.C. without a job, stayed with my aunt and uncle in Annapolis, got the job, spent 5 years there, gave me the housing portfolio, which I have been extremely blessed with. And then somewhere along the way, the Mortgage Bankers Association.
I did see that you were in banking. I wasn't going to bring that up.
This is actually really this is how I ended up here, because I was with Habitat for Humanity International before coming here, but it's always been housing. But this time with the Mortgage Bankers Association is kind of my real learning time, I should say. I met all my mentors and so forth. Well, the Mortgage Bankers Association actually acquired the subprime and Alt-A lender association called NHEMA, National Home Equity Mortgage Association, I think. They merger publicly, but they acquired them.
Right.
And they needed somebody else to help staff it. So I applied for the job, not really knowing that was the full job. Left Capitol Hill, went for this job to help staff them, and they were reporting directly to the board of directors at the time. Except it was the start of the foreclosure crisis, if you recall. Which
So
was
this
all
was
about their
like
product.
08, 09, something
So
like that?
this was actually earlier. This was 2007.
Okay, it was just starting.
Yeah, it was just starting. So we were just calling it the foreclosure crisis on CNBC, and nobody was really talking about it outside the financial trades or papers yet.
Yeah.
And then I got in that job, and a few months in, we realized the first thing we were going to start doing, because they were all going out of business, we were actually watching a website called Mortgage Implodometer, which we were updating our company records on this page, because like saying, okay, they're out of business by looking at this daily.
Wow.
And so we decided we needed to shut down that NHEMA group that was separate body reporting to the board. And we moved them in the regular order.
Okay.
With a lot of consternation, obviously, and a little bit of stress.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, there was a lot of stress going on back then.
Oh my gosh, it was terrible.
I remember October 2008, because that's when I stopped watching the news.
Sir.
I was like, I'm done.
So we moved in regular order, and I just went about, basically I was doing kind of like a journalist role, except I wasn't for a newspaper. It was for the mortgage business and doing policy analysis. And I wasn't in the newspaper room, but we were providing a lot of content. And I was the unique person that was not everyone in the lobbyist world had Capitol Hill experience. I was actually in the policy shop writing the analysis, working with a bunch of the CPAs, Master Public Policy, former CFOs, and a lot of attorneys. And I was more or less like a project manager within there, because I had the Capitol Hill experience. And I like to do what they did, but I just didn't have the skills or the resume that they all had.
So you guys shut that down, and then how did that lead you to be here?
So I spent all my time doing that, and I moved into a role called state and local politics, or director of state and local, and that was focused on local boots on the ground and state association issues. Yeah, and my wife and I had 2 kids now, and I was basically seeing them on the weekends, because it was still the crisis. It was a great recession at this point.
Yeah. Everybody was working multiple jobs at that time.
After 7 years, my wife and I were talking about, like, we need a change. Yeah. And I took a cut in pay to go to Habitat for Humanity International for basically the same job. And actually, they were starting up a position they had, which was more or less reacting to the Great Recession, and now needed to be more targeted with the Habitat state associations and local affiliates on how to talk housing and deal with housing in this new environment. Yeah. Because now all of our mortgage loan officers at our affiliate, like even this one, are now having to be licensed, registered under federal law. We were now regulated by the federal government for the first time ever, beyond OSHA. So that was a really big shift in what was the legal requirements and so forth. So I got to coach them a lot on that and talk through, the new challenges. Everyone wanted a uniform consumer experience. I'm like, I at least could get that and communicate that sort of stuff to the local affiliates because Habitat for Humanity does not occupy in its silo. We are an amazing organization where we can, and often our local Habitat affiliates like ours, controls the entire environment of the home building to the lending, because we are also the mortgage lender to the home buyers. Most of us are doing zero interest mortgages, but we're all doing something below market interest or working with another bank to make the homes affordable.
So just to kind of stop you there for a second, because this is important, and I think that people don't realize this, because from the outside, I think people are like, oh, this is kind of like, one of those like building TV shows where Habitat comes in and we just give people houses, but you don't. You help them learn how to have a house.
I enjoyed watching Extreme Makeover Home Edition.
I remember we both just revealed some of our age there.
Yeah, I'm good with that. We did that show was fun to watch, but it really made things difficult for a lot of those families. And the difference is we're giving a house that's more right-sized for that family. Right number of bedrooms. We're not giving a lot of free things. We're not adding to a tax base that they're not going to be able to pay. We underwrite for all that ahead of time.
Wow.
And the beautiful thing is our families aren't going to pay more than 30% of their gross income.
Wow.
So affordability, 30% is the cap of your gross income, not after taxes, but gross. And if you're paying under that, it's affordable. If you're paying more than that, you're in trouble, basically.
Yeah.
And in Pennsylvania alone, 1 in 8 families are paying more than 50% of their gross income.
What?
And when you're doing that,
1 in 8 families.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
And when you're doing that, when you're paying that much, you're making choices between heat and housing, your education, your housing, your health, and your housing. Choices we shouldn't have to make. So if we're actually tackling housing in general, we'll be going about it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And that gets at all the issues of what I ended up coming and realizing through this experiment of coming to Habitat for Humanity after I left the mortgage bankers was we needed more inventory and we need more subsidy. We need more assistance to making a lot, and maybe even some regulatory relief that's going to be able to make more homes affordable. I arrived at the Mortgage Bankers Association, I left the Mortgage Bankers Association understanding a lot of the economics and market forces and the policy. Because I'm not a lawyer, I'm not giving legal advice. I wasn't giving legal advice then. I was giving analysis on the way politics and the housing market were interacted in some ways, and I got a rudimentary understanding of that economic forces. But when it came down to understanding low-income home ownership or low-income rental, which are similar, they are different programs, but understanding why don't we have enough and why is the cost keep going up?
Yeah.
And those were the things I started investigating and learning. A lot of people know a lot about it, but there is so much lack of will and so many compromises and choices to be able to get the solutions there that it's been mounting up. So the first year I spent at Habitat for Humanity International, our parent organization, which, by the way, I thought I was only going to spend a year there and then move on, just use, good brand, find another lobbying job that's taking care of my family. I actually fell in love with it because of trying to poke holes in our argument. And Habitat for Humanity's program can sound insane at times because as home prices have risen, we have not actually done what we used to do, which in the 70s and 80s was doing a lot, which was fund a home and sell it for basically what it was worth. So in the 1990s, we were actually able to build homes here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, for about $53,000, and we mortgaged it for that. 15-year mortgage, 20-year mortgage.
Wow.
It was fine because that was what we were able to do between gifts in kind and everything, all the cash, what it actually cost us. That's what it was. Now, we have homes that on the market and the costs and so forth are going from $180 to $280.
Yeah.
That's a lot more. Now, how is that affordable to a family? Well, our donors and our partners realize there's going to be a gap, and we've been willing to absorb that and meet that challenge. And that's where we've had a campaign, we've been using grants, but this is the mountain we have to climb. It's like, how do we make more first-time home buyers? We're investing in them and the land to be able to make that happen. So once I started realizing that wasn't a crazy proposition, because I did think the fact that this is a waste of money. How can we shouldn't we actually be investing more? Maybe rental is a better way at this level to make it more affordable, longer tax credit programs and so forth. And I'm like, that's fine, but there is no other housing program out there like Habitat for Humanity that is getting other people actively involved. I think that's just contact your congressman.
I think that's the thing that's fascinating about it, is that you guys are doing it. I want to keep going and dive more into this, but we've reached a point where I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
So I've given you a little bit of a warning. So what is something that Andrew cannot live without? What is your one thing?
I was debating whether it's my coffee cup at home.
Well, we've replaced that for you with the Line
this
coffee
one's beautiful.
mug.
It's a Yeti too.
Yeah,
it is a hefty, sturdy device. I'm gonna clip it out with a carabiner. That'll date me too. I think it's actually my baseball cap.
Okay, so tell me why.
It's actually when I've got on, I'm down to business to do something. I'm going out. I'm ready for an adventure. I can kind of forget everything else, but as long as I can cover my eyes, keeps the glare out of my glasses and so forth. But it's also this comfort of both who I choose to be and want to be, and it's often the hat I'm wearing is often it's either my Habitat hat, which is a great patch hat, dad hat, the buckle, but I love my baseball caps because it also lets me go out there on the adventure. But I'm then connecting with people, asking like, "Hey, did they win the game last night?" Yeah, and we started up a conversation just at a Brewfest in Lidditz on Saturday, and I was wearing my Lancaster Stormers hat, an independent baseball team, and I had at least two people strike up a conversation just over, "Hey, how are they doing?" Because they were in the playoffs up until the other night. And and I like that human connection. They learned a little bit about me to have a gateway, and I could have a human interaction there. But I think there's also that adventure spirit of I'm a big hiker. I love mountain climbing and so forth. And I think going out, one piece of gear, you can't forget my baseball cap.
No,
it's both a comfort and an enabler for the next step.
Well, I love how you even tied it into, sometimes you have a different hat that you have to wear. I mean, that's great. Are your baseball cap, so there's two different types of baseball cap. There's the one that has like no structure in it, and it's crushable. You can just throw it in a bag. Or are you the guy who you have like the molded hat,
Depends on the cap.
It depends on the cap.
Yeah, my Stormers cap is structured.
Okay.
Funny thing is, I ordered the dad hat, the unstructured one.
Oh, that's the dad hat. I didn't even know that.
That's the dad hat.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I ordered that one. I got this one back, didn't realize it. And I'm like, I actually like this one.
That's pretty cool.
But no, I've got a collection of both.
We'll have to see if we can hook him up with a Blackline baseball cap. So
yeah, I'll take it.
We'll see if we can hook you up with that. So we now know that your one thing is a ball cap, which is great. Talking a little bit more about Habitat for Humanity and what they're doing, and hearing you talk about what that is. One, your passion I love. It sounds a lot to me like you guys are. So I have this favorite movie of all time that I watch once a year.
Yeah.
It's called Wonderful Life because I love old movies. It's with Jimmy Stewart, who I think is a great actor, and black and white. I just love all of that. And in that movie, he talks to Mr. Potter, who is this guy who is trying to trap people in not being able to afford a home.
Right.
And he makes this plea from the Bailey Building and Loan, which was their basically what you would call an early credit union.
Yeah, it was an SNL.
Yeah. And he makes this plea where he says, don't people deserve to have a home that they can eat, live, breathe, and die in, where they can build a family, where they can do those things, doesn't it make them better citizens, better pillars in the community? Doesn't it help them to do that? Why should they have to pay so much? Why can't they have an affordable home? And that's what we want to be about. I feel like that's what you're telling me Habitat is.
And I think every politician that's come to HUD or a Habitat for Humanity meeting has gone to those remarks as the template for the starting of their own remarks in a lot of cases.
Wow.
Absolutely.
So wait, just to be clear, you compared me to a politician on the podcast.
No, I actually that's not all what they did. The script from the movie, I think, is the template for so many because it's the right remarks. And coincidentally, Scrooge in Dickens' classic was a mortgage banker because he was foreclosing on all the homes at Christmas and so forth. Yeah. So
I always will see him as Scrooge McDuck. I know that's revealing of where I come from.
No, I love Scrooge. Yeah. Launchpad McQuack was my favorite. Yeah, I got to see him at Disney. That was fun.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, go on.
We're really looking at Corinne O'Connell, who's a colleague of mine. She's a CEO at Habitat Philadelphia. She gave me a great line when I was actually still Habitat for Humanity International. We want homes that are safe, warm, and dry.
Come on.
And those are the three essential criteria of what we're trying to do when it comes to rehabbing homes. Because we build new, but we also do, at least in Lancaster, and some affiliates just do rehab, some do just new builds. We do both.
Okay.
And it's safe, warm, and dry is the ultimate goal on these. Keeping that home affordability, cost management, and so forth for the home buyer is the real mission.
Yeah.
So making those first-time home buyers. So if they're able to keep that price right, they're going to be able to build up the savings, build up the equity, and so forth over time. And that is the magic of what Habitat for Humanity does. By the way, if the home appraises for more than what the family can afford, we have the ability to put in a subordinate mortgage that will close up the gap. So the home buyer wouldn't be exposed to any predatory lending opportunities or something.
Interesting.
After 6 years, if they're staying current on their mortgage, which they do, they can then earn back the remaining of that. So basically, they get appreciation.
So you protect them from getting into a situation that they shouldn't. You're giving them time to build and to grow, which this is right. This is how all of us should actually live life. If you have children, this is your job to be teaching them these things that Habitat is teaching people. And it actually is the one thing that is really difficult and many people don't understand or know. I've had to learn a lot of this personally the hard way. And so that's really exciting. I have a question for you here I want to ask you. Can you tell me what the difference is between a house and a home?
In what country?
Wow.
Because
nice throwback.
It means different things in different places because of honestly, the legal interpretation of who owns what and how you use it and your intent of how long to stay in it. And are you going to move from different homes in different stages?
So let's first talk about here.
Sure.
And then I want to hear, because you've been involved in other places, I think it's important for people to hear what it looks like around the world. So is that an okay thing to ask you?
I can touch on it from some anecdotal. I've been very much a U.S.-focused guy by choice. I've realized being a specialist
then
on it.
Let's answer it from your perspective.
Yeah, so...
the difference between, just if you're listening, the difference between a house and a home.
So the house is going to be the structure no matter where you are.
Okay.
And now that's fine enough, but the structure of what that house quality is also is going to vary widely depending on who you are by choice and what the market is, what the code is, and so forth. Safe, warm, and dry should be a basis point.
I agree.
One international thing I can talk about for illustration here is Habitat for Humanity in 70 countries. We also participate in a tithe program where we give contributions from our unrestricted cash, often provided from the Restore, or sometimes individual donors that can use pass this on to some of the international mission. We've done that with Ukraine.
Wow. And
just a straight pass-through of funds. Habitat Nicaragua is where we've been participating in funding, I think, since at least the beginning when this affiliate came around, 1986.
Wow.
And we have also given some funds to disaster resiliency around the world and after some storms. But with Habitat Nicaragua, safe, warm, and dry, again, kind of being, main criteria, not necessarily around the world health habitats, but that's been kind of like a common lens. And I think it applies here with Habitat Nicaragua, where we've been providing about $2,500 to $5,000 at a time more that have been going to fund about a few hundred concrete floors in their homes, because so many of them are dirt floors. Keeps it nice and cool.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the health outcomes for those families aren't exactly what you might expect, between bugs, worms, and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
Stomach issues. So so that organization has been, despite a lot of political adversity in that country currently, they have been putting in a lot of concrete floors and just improving. Well, this is a great thing about housing. This is always the goal with this, for me in this organization, be it volunteers or home buyers in our community, it's better human outcomes.
Yeah.
And the better human outcome here is better health through a better quality home. Now, what is a house versus a home in the United States? The house is mainly the structure, and that can be variable. You can choose a tiny home if that's a suitable thing. I've heard some charming stories of retirees and divorcees that have moved into tiny homes, and they're like, I'm going to keep doing this, and it's wonderful. I don't think it's for everybody, but for those that find that their niche with that, it's a beautiful thing.
I want a tiny home every weekend when I'm doing my chores at my home. So I think of all the different things that I want. Yeah, I'm like, because I have a barn, which is a really dumb thing to have if you want any free time. It's just a giant hole in the ground that keeps needing maintenance.
Sure.
But yeah. Anyway.
Sure. So the house, or the home, I think really does vary, and it's not just defined on a place like that was grandma's or your mom's, your parents, because as we all know, it's always mom that has the house, or it's grandma's house.
Right.
Dad, grandpa just have the mortgage kind of thing. But the real matter here, I think, is that in America, the home is so much more, because we often transition based on our place in life.
Yeah.
With family.
Yeah.
Independent. Is it, I guess, the bachelor pad, or is it the retirement home, or is it do we want a group home, and so forth? What is that situation at the time? And then that house, interestingly, and this influences how it's a home, are often connected to so many more things. For instance, you can't have a modern American house and home without water pressure. We just take it for granted. You're going to be able to come in. So that means you added into the whole system a water tower, pipes, plumbing, and hydrants and so forth,
all
for
that
fire
infrastructure,
prevention, all of that. And then you've got all these wonderful things from telephones, cable, and so forth. So you have all these easements and liens. I'm like, is it really your land, or is it somebody else? You're just sharing it. And the truth of the matter is, we're just sharing. We're borrowing it for a little while.
Yeah.
We occupy it. You pay the mortgage. That's your rent. It's just different in equity and the rate. Then on top of it, everybody else that has a mutual fund or some health insurance company probably has a stake in your house, because they've bought up the mortgage-backed securities through the market in New York and Chicago and someplace, to be able to share in the value of the money that you're paying in.
Right.
It's an investment. And they have actually, by keeping those, I know the market rate is now 6%, but the reason there's 6%, which is still historically crazy low, believe it or not.
My parents had a home in the 80s. So.
There we go. There we go. Very high in the teens.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that 6% right now for the market is good. I'm not saying to be okay with it. But historically speaking, the reason it's kept low is because of these investments from those entities of Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. All these other people have technically a stake in the way we're repaying our homes and the state of our homes, which is why they then require the insurance. Somebody else is both benefiting from the insurance premiums and so forth for when they have trouble down the road. And then there's obviously fees along the way. That's all being passed out. There is so much more infrastructure and pieces in America of what makes a home.
Right.
And an experience of that home in a house in America.
You know, I have to touch on this because you went here, at Blackline, and the line and our vision is to lift the view of the skilled trades. And the reason for that, we have an affiliate that we work with called BuildWit, and they would say they want to make the dirt world a better place. And all of this stuff comes around to infrastructure and people not knowing how to do that work, not understanding what that work is, and the importance of, and I love how you're talking about what a home is. And here in the United States, all of that stuff we take for granted. Like that's why, we have training that we're working on to train people how to do this work, is because we take those things for granted. And the people that aren't there, try to call a plumber nowadays and see if they come like they did 5 years ago. It's not the same. And so the importance of the things that we take for granted, like a warm shower, take a cold shower for a week. You have running water, you're still ahead of the game. Like, and listen, I love America.
Go backpacking.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
You'll
come back and enjoy the littlest things.
I love where we live, and I am doing what I'm doing because I want my children to be able to experience some of the life that I'm enjoying. And I think it is diminishing. I think it is disappearing because the knowledge of the people that know how to do the work is disappearing. And what you're talking about is why it is so essential and important, because the house being a structure, the home is what you build on, but not just for a home is what my parents were then able to build on, because I grew up, and I did grow up, didn't realize that we were poor. My wife and I were just talking about this until I got married, and I was like, what did you got that for Christmas? Like, what? And just different things that we would talk about from our childhood. But I grew up safe, warm, and dry.
Yeah.
And that is the essence of a home that we build on then for our families, so that it can be grandma's home or mom's home, so that there is another generation. And we really take for granted, I think. I've been to some of the countries that you're talking about, and I was so amazed. I went to Guatemala once, and I was there, and I was so amazed at their hospitality and how much they cared for me being there and sacrificed in a way. But it was like they didn't have running water. They didn't have, and they literally had to walk for hours just to get water.
Right.
And here we live, and the importance of what you're doing in building homes. You're not building houses. You're building homes, because you're really truly building a home, because you're taking people and saying, here's a house. Here's how we're going to protect you in this house.
Right.
Here's how we're going to show you how to build. Like at Blackline, we have an apprenticeship, which is where you come alongside someone and you learn with them, which I think is the best way to build teams, to build people, and to learn. And you guys are literally doing the same thing in one of the most important areas of life, to helping people build their own legacy to be able to leave it. And that is more, if I could say, more than essential. It is more than essential. And that's what's so cool about what you're doing. And I love that it's called the Restore. I mean, I'm getting a little bit on a soapbox here, but it's like, we live in this culture, in this society where we're saying, well, we want to be sustainable. We want to be green. We want to be this. We want to be that. You are literally the epitome of all of the things that we're saying that we want to do. You're being efficient. I mean, I'm looking at a collection of sinks over here behind my camera that people are coming in. And the cool part is, even in the Restore and the innovation of what you're doing with this, in order to help financially do what you're doing, is helping other people help themselves.
Exactly.
And this is, I'm going to be really revealing here. When I was newly married in my early 20s, my wife and I shopped at this, not this physical store, but another one that you guys had.
Yes.
And it was because we couldn't afford to shop at, Heckinger's back then,
Sure.
But we couldn't afford to go there. And it made it that we were able to build our home. And so I think that's a fascinating thing of how you're talking about the differences between a house and a home, and then also the importance of what it is here in America that we take for granted, and then that infrastructure and those things that matter.
By the way, this is the, I think, third location, maybe fourth location of this store, but we're the fourth Restore in the country. Wow. So that started in the late 90s, early 2000s to help supplement the home affordability. And it was necessary for us to be able to overcome some, especially now, that moving into this building was a strategic decision, because yes, we needed more space, but the market had grown so much that to cover some of the administrative costs and still build a home every year more, we needed a bigger parking lot, we needed a bigger facility, and we're really blessed that our partner, Deere & Companies, was willing to go so high on the ceiling to go
Yeah.
30 feet. We were able to put a lot more pallet racking and higher stuff in here. The motto overall with this store and the mission is making home affordable, because it's broader than just the whether you're renting or you own or you're living with family. Making a home affordable, making it a home, is essential.
Yeah.
And keeping it safe, warm, and dry is obviously all part of that. So this store is a vehicle for so much more than just obviously providing that net that we know we need for the first-time home buyer.
I don't know if you know this or not, but so we've been involved in this project from a design standpoint from the very beginning. And I don't know if you know what this building sits on, which I find fascinating.
I just met with an artist that Joe Deere, the landlord and owner of Deere & Companies, introduced me to. Steve Wilson, who does a lot of murals in the neighborhood. Yeah. He showed me the painting of the old facility that was here.
Yeah.
I've driven by it a million times, but I think I was probably just rushing off to either Target or Lebanon for our other house builds up there. Yeah. And I don't think I ever noticed that was here. What was it again?
So there was a foundry on the other side of the street, and then this was another part of it as well.
Okay. It was part of it.
And
where the apartments are now.
Where the apartments are now. And it's like, and this was a plant. And just to be clear, these sites were not, the reason you probably didn't notice when you drove past it is you didn't want to look at it, because they were dilapidated, degraded, and
they were.
There was even
80-foot
some
tower here. Right.
And there was we'll say some toxicity and whatnot that had to be taken care of in the land. So
I know there's a big cap on this. This is
re-land.
Road.
This is re-land that the restore sits on. Meaning,
that's interesting.
I
like that.
You guys have done that, and the Deere & Companies did that. But it's like, that's what's so fascinating about what we can do in the trades and in the construction industry, is we can take something that everyone has stopped looking at and thinks that it's gone and it's done with, and we can't reclaim it. We can't make it better. And the partners and whatnot, whether it's the Deere & Companies or even the different trade partners that were part of building this. And the cool part is, it wasn't even a volunteer thing. It was just construction and the trades who built this facility here, where this has actually increased the value of our entire community. And they're doing the same thing across the street with the apartments, which are premium luxury apartments on land that they thought was done. And so that's fascinating to me. And so I think it's important. I believe a lot in legacy, heritage, and what you guys are doing. And it's like, just the fact that your building even sits on something like that is fascinating to me. So
I love redevelopment. I love repairing things on principle, both for our environment and because, for instance, Lancaster County is so famous for Amish country, pastoral scenes, the farmland, and so forth. People that aren't from here don't think of our beautiful city of Lancaster as the first thing. Unfortunately, they should. I think they absolutely should come out for the restaurants and the community, and the people are amazing.
I agree.
As somebody that's moved up here 7 years ago, it's the reason I'm really in this role with my family here, of all places. But the neighborhood transformation here is really been thanks to Joe's investment in so many ways, and I'm really glad he picked this site for this store, because I definitely don't even think I could have even thought to even ask him for something along those lines. We were looking for other. We had a tired old building that we loved. It's been very, very good to us out in East Lampeter. And we were looking for a larger version of that with hopefully a little more parking. And this was not in our board's expectations or mine. And we feel very humbled and blessed. And I often remind everybody that we're leasing this. And the reason I emphasize that is because we should not have actually paid ourselves to build and invest in something like this, when I'm going to be building and investing in so many first-time home buyers in our program.
Yeah.
This building and facility is a vehicle for us to help build our community, our culture, and leverage more resources so that we can continue doing that larger mission, making home affordable, making first-time home buyers. That is the thing that we're all drilling in on. And it's part of that long game is you got to nurture a lot of the people that are going to be getting that job done for you, from our volunteers, which are serving here at the Restore as well as on our build sites, and out in our community with other events, and obviously the staff to help facilitate them, because we all work for them fundamentally.
So I think it's probably pretty self-explanatory, but I want you to kind of bring some clarity and definition to your safe. I want to make sure I get this right. Safe, warm, and dry?
Yes.
Okay. So, Andrew, really quick, what is it to be safe?
So that goes to that one thing real quick, but
Yeah.
it just goes to that notion of what is a home.
Yeah.
And it's a combination of private and invitation public, that you can invite people in to your private space.
Yeah.
And when you feel comfortable with that, to being authentically you, that is really where you know you're safe.
What is it to be warm?
That one can vary in a lot of different ways. I think that the notion of physically warm, temperature-wise, is essential. We're warm-blooded animals.
Yeah.
If you're cold-blooded, you'd really need it to be warm. But we need a certain temperature range that is comfortable and so forth. I prefer something cooler with a sweater, but the warmth, I think, that really comes in, and this is where Habitat is, I think, a specialist. We've got other nonprofit partners that bring up volunteers, but the warmth you get from people trying to make better human outcomes by more human involvement is my favorite. That's real warmth.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting, just since our design team at Blackline was involved, I have to touch on this aspect of warm. I think that design, and we focus, we're not like, artistic designers, but we are a mechanical, electrical, and plumbing designers. Design brings an avenue of warmth. And I just mean, the type of lighting that you pick, the type of paint that you pick, the way that you bring those things together, brings a warmth to the home.
It's actually the functionality of my dad being electrical, master electrician. I remember going to Shanner Electric back in Buffalo, and his favorite thing was playing around with all the new products of the light dimmers and the lights and the different bulbs and so forth, and the features you could have, and the human responses you could get out of that.
Yeah,
I swear my dad should have been an artist, but he inherited the business and so forth. But he really loved doing that. And my house growing up had more light switches and bulbs than most people would probably think would need.
I think that your dad and I would get along just fine, because my house is very similar. So then, to the last point, dry.
So that one is fundamentally about your health.
Okay.
But it's also about the property maintenance. So if the property, the home, solid roof, tight. I love the term my construction team and builders say, when is the house watertight? How quickly can we get it watertight? Outside, exterior, and so forth. It's going to have a dry basement where there's nothing going to be leaking and so forth. If there's less moisture, and the moisture is controlled and only where you want it, in the sink, in the tub, in the shower, and so forth, toilet space and so forth, if that's all controlled, your health is going to be better, and the place is more likely to be managed for much more a much more extended time and lifeline. That then comes with maintenance. And that's where understanding what it is to know where things need to be replaced, from gaskets and so forth, the gutters, things you probably don't normally think of. You take for granted they just work until they spring that leak, or there's that gush coming in, or you see some even worse mold. A lot of properties, so in Pennsylvania in particular, and most of the Northeast actually is like this, we have a very old housing stock. This is where the country really started growing and migrating and so forth. And when we started, I'm sorry, I really should be talking about that in terms of, white men coming from Europe to settle. And it's a very old established area right now, where we have a lot of old homes, and we love our old homes. But the average age of a house in the United States is just 17 years old.
Wow.
Overall. How old do you think they are in Pennsylvania? Do you want to take a guess?
Well, I mean, most of the homes that I bought have been over. I mean, I grew up in a home that was over 150 years old.
Right.
So,
57 years old.
Wow. The average across the country is 17.
17.
And in Pennsylvania, it's almost
57.
60.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that tells you one thing, why a program like a home repair program is essential, especially for low-income families.
Absolutely.
The more grants you could probably have for some of those families, it'd be more impactful, which is where Pennsylvania set up with some of the federal funds it got after the pandemic to use for whole home repair.
Okay.
Hugely impactful, so that you're able to work with subcontractors, licensed subcontractors, and handle some of those critical repairs of your home, making it dry for one thing, because that's usually the safe, warm part kind of follows along. If you're able to make it dry, first of all, you're going to be able to have a lot of the other benefits.
Yeah.
But that structural aspect of what is a dry home, it takes a lot of maintenance, and we defer stuff all the time. I also like to point out that most of us like to treat our homes like we treat our shoes. You get a brand new pair of shoes wherever you bought it from, and you say to yourself, I'm going to treat it better than the last one.
Yeah.
But then Friday night comes, and it's slushy out from a snowstorm that didn't quite pan out the way they wanted.
In Pennsylvania, for sure.
You had to get your groceries, carrying everything in and out. You scuff it, you kick them off across the room. They get scuffed, probably bumped up your drywall on the wall, which isn't going to help with that dry part later on either.
I've never yelled at my kids for that.
Exactly. So what ends up happening is we end up deferring, and we'd like to replace. The thing is, we're not going to go out and buy a new house as conveniently. Yeah. But what we do need to do is do a lot more maintenance, regular check-ins.
That's good.
Simple things, downspouts, gutters, filters are a good start.
So we've reached that point. We were actually there a little while ago. So kind of coming to a close here. I told you this earlier, and this is the one that gets a little real, we'll call it.
Mm-hmm.
But what's a mistake that Andrew has made that he's willing to share with people that they might learn from? Something that you've done that, yeah.
So I've gotten asked this question a handful of times, and I often, I've learned from all the mistakes, but I don't ever think of them as mistakes. I've made a choice. I've lived with the consequences. I've gone on. So I think in the last few years, coming here especially, do I regret things? Yes. Do I think they were mistakes? No, because I made the best decision I could have at the time. But I can say there were some things I definitely learned from back when I was working for the congressman. So I got the housing portfolio, and I decided to step up and offer, hey, why don't we have a first-time homebuyer workshop for our constituents back in Western New York, Buffalo and Rochester area. They loved the idea. They'd never done anything like that before. I was working with a friend, my future to be working at the mortgage bankers several years later, a couple of years later after that. And they connected me with some mortgage lenders, and I worked with the realtors, connect with some local real estate agents that were able to do this training. And I even got a HUD counselor to come out. So we had 3 of these events all scheduled on the same day. That was going to be about an hour and a half each one program. And the congressman was going to come kick off each one as he drove across the district one at a time. Had it all scheduled, got the right guests and so forth. We publicized it for like 3 weeks, mostly in the newspaper and the radio and on our website, which was like a new thing at the time. And so the day came, and he showed up. Our guests, our speakers and experts were there. Nobody else came. So he got in the car, drove off to the next one. Same thing. Starts getting all the way out to Rochester, and now he's like really annoyed.
Holy crap.
I didn't get a phone call, but my chief of staff called me later and told me what was going on. And then I think he hangs up abruptly, and somebody else calls me and says that I think it was his driver when he was there. We're setting up a press conference now on the fly so we can recover from this. 2 people showed up at the last one, and they were ended up in the background on this. And Saturday, so I'm in the Capitol. They're back in Western New York, and this was my day off, and I just keep getting all these phone calls, and I'm like, oh God, am I gonna have a reputational issue here with this young guy just out of college working for the congressman, and he's really irritated by the whole thing, and not knowing what really to do, I just waited until Monday morning, feeling absolutely sheepish, and I think like most of the day went by till the chief of staff brought me into his the boss's office because he wasn't there, and said, "That was an unmitigated disaster." I took it. I took the beating on the chin, on the side of the face, whatever, and I realized I didn't get fired. I got the yelling. Nobody said a damn thing about it to me after that. But I walked away and started jotting down, as I do in my notebooks all the time.
I love
just
that you
what I
have
just
notebooks.
learned and so forth. And I
Yeah.
started back thinking what I would have done differently. And I go, it was as simple as an RSVP list.
Yeah.
One. The other thing is I probably could have asked the guys in the district office for a little more information. Now, nobody volunteered any other ideas or guidance on this. I think they all thought it was a fine plan. But I realized, okay, if I need to own this, I need to scrutinize it even more than I ever thought I had to.
Ooh, that's good.
And I need to ask everyone else more questions.
That's good. Come on.
And
Come on.
that became kind of that driving, like, I'm going to mess up quite a bit.
Yeah.
And this one I'm just going to probably call one of my better mistakes.
That's a good one. I mean, the importance of when you're responsible for something that you need to drive it farther, that you need to go after those things. That's something I've been learning over the past year in some of my roles, stepping back from things and realizing there are things that I'm still responsible for that I need to be involved in, that I need to be making sure I'm asking the right questions and not just assuming.
Right.
What a horrible word, assuming. Not just assuming that it's all working the way that it should be.
Yeah,
And
my favorite phrase I learned from Mary Jo at a Mortgage Bankers Association was, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
My point, and this is my favorite thing about doing policy analysis, is I get to sit around a table or a conference call back then and ask the guys that are doing the work, here's what I think how it works. Give me feedback. And it becomes an interview situation, very journalistic and so forth, investigative reporting in a lot of ways. And I get caught up and then in the idea of how it really works, and I'm able to give better analysis when I'm writing that letter to the regulators or writing testimony or something along these lines. The same idea applies here now. So I've got a bunch of experts that really understand the retail side. They understand the construction side. They understand volunteers.
Yeah.
They understand the accounting and the finance better than I have. And I've got staff. I've also got deep bench of volunteers that are CPAs, that are running whole construction companies, that brands you guys would all know. They're amazing.
Wow.
And they become, I've got official committees, and then I've got what I call a kitchen cabinet of just the advisors, people I could just text and call.
Yeah.
To ask this is how I think it works. Is this how you would go about it? What would you do?
Yeah.
Having that is probably, and I actually recommend this to anybody that is starting out there, knowing generally what they want to do with their career. Find those group advisors and keep looking for them. Build the trust. Listen, ask questions and listen, and find a way to retain it. I don't know if you need an app or a notebook, whatever the heck it is, Notion, Evernote, whatever, go with it and try to and grow from that.
Yeah, that's essential. I love that you are a note taker. I am as well. I think that it's super important. For me, that's how I retain things, by writing them down.
Yeah.
So
I've also got my pen that's always clipped to it.
I love that. Well, Andrew, I so appreciate you stepping up to the line. I owe you a lunch. So we were supposed to have lunch today.
Yeah, I enjoyed the coffee.
Yeah.
New mug.
Yeah, I owe you that. I appreciate you telling us about what Habitat Lancaster and Lebanon is doing, and what Habitat overall is about. I love now that I know what it is to be safe, warm, and dry. And I think those are important things for all of us. And this is why you need to step up to the line, because we need to be building homes for people, not just houses, not just infrastructure, not just doing the work. It's so much more than that. We need to be coming to work with the intention of building a better future for tomorrow. And we do that by that investment in building things that are safe, warm, and dry. So, Andrew, as we close here, where can people find out how they can be a part of what Habitat Lancaster Lebanon is doing? Or even, we do have people listening all over the country.
Yep.
Actually, even the world. There's some of our analytics says people in India are listening. So what can they do to be involved with Habitat?
So for those in India and anywhere outside of Lancaster, Lebanon, Pennsylvania, go to habitat.org.
Okay.
And for those out in India, by the way, they're doing some interesting things where, again, not just focused on the home building. They've realized that actually doing a lot of sanitation work
Wow.
through toilets and so forth are a critical element around there.
Come on.
And we do that in various parts of the world too, because that's part of making that safe, warm, and dry home.
Absolutely.
For folks that are here in Lancaster in Lebanon, Lancaster, Lebanon, habitat.org. And you can contact me and contact our whole team, get you involved with volunteering, building, getting you here in the shop to be able to do some of the retail work too, which is great for frenzied mind that wants to come meet a lot of people, or if you want to see the real work of building something from the frame up, it'd be great to have you on the build site.
Awesome. And you guys are on Instagram and LinkedIn as well.
And Facebook.
Look at
We're
that.
still there.
All right. Good deal. Hey, thank you for stepping up to the line.
Thanks, Josh.
This is a great, honest conversation.
I really
really
enjoyed
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Be well. Thank you.
All right. Good deal. All right. We're out. And you have 2 minutes. So I was watching that. So, hey, thank you so much.